Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe so that you can get any notifications of when we are releasing any new content. So this week, me and Julie are having a chat about the four areas of dog listening and just going into a little bit more detail about what those areas are and a little bit about what they look like. And you might be sat listening to this thinking, I have tried everything with my own dog. I feel like I've done everything. And what we like to see dog listening as is a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, and looking at it at these four areas that we teach about. And it might be that you're thinking, well, I've done everything, but like any jigsaw, it's not complete when until all the pieces are kind of put together. And so, what we've found that a lot of people are doing with their dog is only just focusing on one part of the jigsaw and not looking at the whole picture. And it's only when we put all those pieces of the jigsaw puzzle together that we can really start to truly understand our dogs and how they communicate, and they can also start to understand us as well. And so today we just want to talk to you about those four parts of the jigsaw that we talk about. And you might have heard us talk about the jigsaw before. But the first part of it is we call it the language of, and the first one is the language of interaction. So Julie, do you want to talk to us a little bit more about what the language of interaction is,
Sure.
for everybody?
Yes, the language of interaction is when we talk about the language of interaction, we're talking about the times when we interact with our dog, generally at home, because we have another part of the jigsaw that talks a bit more about when you're out and about on a walk or in a cafe. So we tend to look at the language of interaction when we're at home. So when we come into the house, that's the first area where your dog is like, okay, what's happening? What's going on? So you're we call it the reunite, the greeting when you come in. And it's also around when you're at home and you're sitting in the evening and you just want to watch your favorite TV program and the dog starts up like throwing a ball at your feet or jumping up on the sofa or pawing at you or just generally demanding attention.
Yeah.
That all comes under the language of interaction.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, that's kind of the main things, really, isn't it? I mean, there's the coming and going like through doors at home, but yeah, that's really when we interact. Whenever you want to have a conversation with your dog during when you're at home.
Yeah, it's interesting you say the conversation because and you might have heard us talk about this before with the questions and answers that our dogs will ask us. And I always like to see it as a conversation. And and it's there's some real subtle questions that your dog will ask you that we don't even realize are questions. And the language of interaction, this area really looks at all those subtle interactions that we have with our dog on a daily basis that you might not even realize are questions. And they are simply your dog just posing a question to you. And if we didn't realize it was a question, we'd probably be inclined to answer it in the wrong way. And so, therefore, giving our dog information that we didn't even intend to give. And so, it's really understanding what those questions are and then how to answer them in a way that your dog understands. So, yeah, those interactions every single day. And I think you just mentioned a few, didn't you, Julie? Like, yeah, coming into the reunite through any door, whether that's from your external door or your internal doors in the house. Your dog invading your space as well. That's an interaction. Dog giving eye contact with you. That's also an interaction. And so, in this area, we really teach you how to answer those questions and even the subtle ones as well.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're looking for here, well, in all of it, but maybe specifically this piece of the jigsaw, is this healthy conversation, this healthy relationship, and really deepening the bond and deepening the connection between you and your dog. That's
Mm.
really what we're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it may seem like really quite simple because it is.
Yeah, but it's so important.
And yeah, but it's so important and it's so simple that some people go, "Oh, so this is." I'm like, I think sometimes we feel like training a dog or to be with a dog or to communicate with a dog needs to be really overcomplicated and it's a really complex thing to do. But actually, it's so simple and so effective because it's so simple.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're all communicating with our dogs all the time anyway. All we're doing is um changing the language, speaking more in their language so that they get the right information that helps them to
Yeah,
relax and improve the behavior, whatever it is that is the issue.
yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's the language of interaction where we look at reuniting, we look at space invading, the questions your dog will ask you in those moments and how to respond to them. And then the second question, sorry, not the second question, the second language that we look at, the second part of the jigsaw that we look at is called the language of danger. Um, and it's perceived danger, really, isn't it? It's looking at those moments where your dog is going, I think this might be a dangerous situation. So I need to warn us all of this situation. And that might look like, for example, your dog barking at somebody walking past the house, or the post person coming and your dog responding to it, and how to deal with. And again, these are questions, and your dog is going just doing what they think is best in that situation. And again, it's how we respond to those questions. Is there anything you want to add there, Julie, about danger?
Yeah, just really the fact that the perceived bit, because danger can be literally anything for some dogs. The kind of more obvious like fireworks or a pan dropping in the kitchen, that kind of thing. But for some dogs, depending on their state of mind, or yeah, their state of mind, it can be literally a bag blowing in the breeze or a leaf blowing at night, and they're like, oh, what's that? And they might bark or startle and be and feel worried. And also the less obvious signs of um, the reaction to that can be when they no longer bark at fireworks, they just literally shake
Mm,
and they pant and they slaver and all of that. So, but it's all the same problem kind of underneath it. So yeah, just to mention a little bit about that. But yeah, so it's like all of the parts of the jigsaw, it's super simple.
mm.
Um, but it's really important to have the whole jigsaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of response to perceived dangers by the dog can be either inside the home or outside of the home as well.
Yeah.
And we teach in here a tool or a technique, I suppose, called Thank, Look, Reflect, which is where we are simply responding to the dog, responding to the danger, and we're literally going, "It's okay, we've got this. You don't need to worry. We can deal with this." And once they really go, "Oh, yeah, you do seem to have this. Everything's all okay," and we're never ever teaching somebody to get their dog to stop barking completely because that's never going to happen. Dog is always going to respond and let the household know there is a danger. But what we want to do is really kind of de-escalate that, and to the point where it might be just a woof and go, yep, okay, thanks, I've heard it too. Yeah, great. And the dog just relaxes, instead of what we see a lot of, isn't it, Julie, which is the excessive barking at every single sound or movement that is heard, which is a dog on high alert.
Yes, and we also talk about, and we don't want to go into too much detail of this on this video, but this idea that we're not giving them a row for barking. Like you said, we don't want the dog to not bark. That's not a healthy animal, like or a healthy dog. Like that's how they communicate with us. But there's a difference between healthy barking and excessive
Yeah.
barking, which is why we never give a dog that's barking a row or shout at them or tell
Yeah.
them to stop or any of that. So yeah.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to that communication, doesn't it, that we talked about in the beginning, the communication with your dog and how to respond to that communication. Right. So the third area, the third part of the jigsaw puzzle is the language of food. Um, and the language of food, it's an area that a lot of people don't really look at very much. They just think, well, I just need to feed my dog. Is there any communication within that? And it's one area that I suppose when I was learning dog listening, I was like, wow, there's so much information given when
Mhm.
feeding a dog or around any kind of food, either when we're eating or we're giving them some kind of food reward or anything like that. There's so much communication that a lot of people just miss, don't they?
Yeah.
Um, and I think with the language of food, what I love the most about it is it's so calm and there's no commands, there's no doing anything. It's simple, like everything with dog listening, it's simple, but it makes so much sense. And the information that we give the dog when feeding them is kind. Um, and that because I think there's so many different approaches out there that aren't kind around food and use food as a bit of a weapon or a bribe. And dog listening is not about that. It's about feeding with kindness, um, while giving some information and back to that communication that we've talked about at the core of it.
Yeah, it's so powerful. I really like you said when I first bumped into it, I was like, wow, it is powerful.
Mm.
And it can be and when you think about it, of course it's powerful. It's their survival. I mean, it's all about survival, but the food is direct survival. Um, and it's interesting sometimes when I ask people about, like ask clients about how they feed their dog, or I'll say to them, okay, what about food? You know, what's going on there? And I keep it vague, like just to kind of open up the conversation. And 9 times out of 10, people will talk to me about what it is they're feeding their dog,
Mm.
which is important, but it's not what we're talking about in dog listening because that's one thing, which is important. But and most people that I come across think that that's the only bit. And it's like, yeah, what you feed your dog is one conversation, but actually how you feed your dog is also really, really powerful. And that's very often missed in the jigsaw, especially if you don't have a problem with food. Like
Yeah,
it doesn't look like there's a problem there with
yeah,
food. So it's like, well, I don't need what? I don't need that bit. So it's just, yeah, helpful to just yeah, make it clear that you need all the bits of the
yeah.
jigsaw.
And yeah, a lot of the clients that I've worked with, and I know our students have as well. They're always like, "Well, I don't have a problem around food." But like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's a really important conversation to have because, as we know in dog listening, everything feeds into one another. It's this holistic approach, and remember, we're looking at this as a big picture, and this is part of a jigsaw. We need to have that food part of the jigsaw in place in order to have that kind of fully rounded, kind of holistic conversation with our dogs. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's a fascinating part of dog listening, which we all really enjoy talking about, don't we? The food part, because it's just so underestimated and like nobody
Yeah.
really looks at it, and it can have such a massive impact in
Yeah.
other areas of the dog's life.
Oh, yeah. Like huge impact. I mean, the idea that change how you feed your dog and they're going to be, not aggressive towards dogs when you're out. It's like, what? What are you
Yeah,
talking about?
how
It's
could
like,
that possibly be? Yeah,
yeah, it's like, no, it's all connected.
all interlinked. Yeah. Okay, great. So the final area um, is the language of the outside world. And this is anything to do with anything away from your home, what the dogs see as their den, their safe space. And sometimes for a dog, even stepping outside of the front door can be an experience that is very stressful for them. And that stress can be displayed in ways that make us think that they are excited, or really happy to be going out. And what we teach people is how to look at your dog's body language, how to read how they're feeling about going outside, and also to make sure and how to communicate with your dog to build up gradually so that they are going, okay, all right, we're going outside, but I trust and have confidence in you to make all these big decisions while we're outside. And us managing to read when actually we've taken a step too far, let's just go back a little bit. And a lot of the time when a dog is displaying some behaviors, as I said before, we can see it as excitement. And most of the time it is adrenaline. It is this high adrenaline stressed state because they're like, I've got to get ready. I'm going to the outside world. There's going to be lots of dangers, and I feel responsible. And oh look, there's somebody on a bike, rah, 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 or oh look, there's a cat, or and they're just not calm and relaxed. And what we know dogs will naturally look like when they are feeling calm and relaxed is they'll just be walking alongside beautifully next to you. Um, so yeah, that is essentially what we are teaching people to achieve in the outside world, but also what to look like, what to look at in order to kind of look at your individual dog and what they can cope with, and not to see every dog as the same, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think again, the connection between the state of mind of the dog when they're leaving the house will have a direct impact on what happens when you get to the park or the beach or whatever. And people will often say to me, oh, they're really excited they're going for a walk, and then we're going to do this, and then we'll start training them when we get to the park. And it's like, that's way too late. Like, well, as dog listeners, we look at the moment the lead comes out. That's the start of the walk, really, isn't it? It's like, okay, we're going for a walk, we're going to get the lead out, the harness, whatever.
Some
Uh,
dogs, it's even you could even have a thought, kind of
yeah,
pick up on it.
yeah, exactly. They're like, you're like, how did they know?
Yeah, how
Thinking
did
about it, because they're so smart. And then they immediately start to get into that kind of excitable state. And, excitement is very closely linked to anxiety anyway. But even if we kind of don't agree on that and we assume, okay, the dog's excited, do we want our dog to be in that state? Because if they're leaving the house in that state, then they'll quickly get to that state when they're outside, when they see something worrying. So yeah, again, like all the pieces, the language of the walk is really important. And as dog listeners, we teach that starts at home, not when you're actually out on the walk, which again is different to most other trainings and yeah, ways of being with your dogs. So it's kind of quite often dog listening is pretty much the opposite of everything you've done before, which is great because if nothing has worked, then it's good to be doing something different.
yeah. And for me, it just makes sense. And you're like, oh yeah. And we are always talking about what we should be doing, rather than how we should be with our dogs and fully understanding why they are doing what they're doing, which is what dog listening does so beautifully and really gets to the kind of the core of the issue, which is so lovely.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the four areas that we teach about, the four languages. So we've got the language of interaction, the language of danger, food, and then the outside world. And at the core of all four of those areas that we talk about is you as a person and how you are as a leader, if you like, if you want to use that terminology, or you as somebody that they're looking to make all those big decisions. And also at the core of those four areas is what the dog is most concerned about, which is their survival. And they all feed into that. And so it all interlinks, all makes sense. It's all very simple. Once you know it and you understand it, you can't unsee it. And you're like, nothing else makes sense after you know dog listening. You go, oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, no, nothing makes sense now because I know this about the dog. So yes, those are the four areas. So hopefully you have got a better understanding now of those four areas of dog listening. If you have got any questions about those four areas or anything to do with dog listening as an approach, just pop it in the comments below. We would really love to hear from you. Or you can give us an email, and our email address is just below as well. So if you haven't, please like and subscribe this video, and we are going to be seeing you on our next video, where we're going to be talking about one big shift that you can make to really change your relationship with your dog. So bye for now, guys.